That thumbnail probably grabbed you first. In my version of Star Wars Outlaws, the main character is a Twi'lek that looks just like Mission Vao from KOTOR. Yep. Ubisoft didn't do that, the developers, they didn't do that, the writers, they certainly didn't do that. Some Hero and Nexus mods did that. I clicked a button, and now I'm 15 hours into a game I swore off in 2024. And I wasn't wrong not to play it back then. The game sucked, and saying so made you the bad guy. I know what you're thinking. Captain Katarn, Star Citizen channel, why are we talking about an Ubisoft game? Well, stick with me. This is the story of how Star Wars Outlaws went from one of the biggest commercial disasters of 2024 to a game that could be worth playing in 2026, but with some major caveats. It's a story about iterative development, community feedback, and players fixing what developers couldn't. Or wouldn't, I guess. To really understand the disaster that was Star Wars Outlaws, let me show you why this game was such a failure. It's hard to believe, really. It's no secret that Ubisoft has been on the decline for years. They've made formulaic games for so long that the joke writes itself. Climb the tower, unlock that map, here the icons repeat. They built that template with Assassin's Creed in 2007, and they've been running it into the ground ever since. Every open world game that they ship is the same game in a different skin. So when Star Wars Outlaws was announced, anyone paying attention knew exactly what they were going to get. It'd be an open world with a map full of icons, and towers in spirit, if not in literal form in the game. The financials tell you that the audience is so over that. Ubisoft's stock is down over 50% in the last year, down over 80% across the last 5. 4 straight years of negative cash flow, they've had game cancellations, massive layoffs, and there's been employee revolts. The family-owned French publisher that gave us the original Splinter Cell and Beyond Good and Evil is now a company that shareholders are openly asking whether to break apart and sell off their IP. That's how bad it is. And Star Wars Outlaws was supposed to be the game that turned it around. They had one of the biggest IPs in entertainment with a marketing budget to match. This was a layup. It's the one they couldn't miss, right? Star Wars fans have wanted a real smuggling game for 30 years. We've gotten Jedi games, we've gotten Rebel pilot games, we've gotten Battlefronts and Bounty Hunter games, but what we haven't had is the Han Solo experience. The guy who owns Jabba money, the guy whose ship is falling apart, the guy who shoots first because he just doesn't have time to ask questions. That's the part of Star Wars that's been mostly missing from games, and Outlaws was supposed to fix that. I think there was a large audience this game could have served. I was interested when I first heard about it, so were a lot of people. And then Star Wars Outlaws launched in August 2024 with a sales target of 5.5 million units, and it missed it so badly that Ubisoft CEO went on an investor call and blamed the Star Wars brand for being in, and this is a direct quote, choppy waters. It's definitely not our design decisions. It's certainly not our creative decisions. It could never have been the awful stealth system that would fail you for getting spotted with no way to fight your way out of it. No, it was the brand, Star Wars, the most valuable IP in entertainment history. That's as bad as blaming failing entertainment properties on toxic fans. I don't believe in toxic fans because guess what doesn't have toxic fans? Great products that people enjoy. It's amazing that the idea of fan service has this negative connotation in a medium where the only thing that matters is making money. The idea that critics liking something is more important than the paying customer is just absolutely unreal. Alright, come back to me, that's another discussion. Look, the brand thing isn't completely wrong. Star Wars in 2024 wasn't thriving. The Acolyte had just released, and you know how that went. Well, I don't, because I've never seen it. I'm firmly committed to not supporting the things I don't enjoy, and the Kathleen Kennedy era will be remembered for destroying Star Wars, in my opinion. But the balance sheets agree. Yet, that's not a free pass for Ubisoft either. Jedi Survivor came out just a year before that, and did just fine, so it's not like audiences had stopped buying Star Wars products. Beat us up enough and eventually even a die-hard fan like myself learns to walk away. We stopped supporting bad products. And Outlaws, at launch, was a bad one. And if you're wondering what made that game so bad, the gameplay itself was a major issue. The stealth system that shipped on launch neutered your character's identity completely. If you got spotted in a restricted zone, it was an instant mission failed moment. Reload from your last checkpoint, then do the whole thing over and over again, which, if you know me, is a problem because the second the game tells me I have to be sneaky, I'm looking for the nearest blaster and the nearest crowd of stormtroopers. I enjoy the chaotic nature of a character with an oppositional defiance streak, reminds me of myself. And Kay Vess is supposed to be that character. She's a scoundrel, she's a thief. She's supposed to improvise her way out of bad situations, not reload her way out of them. The launch stealth system took the most interesting thing about the character and turned it into a fail state. The idea of being a scoundrel in Star Wars originated with Han Solo, the shoot first, ask questions later kind of guy. All balls, no regrets, and it's the kind of character I want to play. If I'm cornered, I'm not surrendering in this universe, I'm blasting until one of us is down. Deus Ex Human Revolution nailed this approach. You could ghost an entire mission without firing a shot, or you could go in loud and turn every room into a firefight. Both paths were viable. Both had their own rewards. Player agency sells the game to people with different tastes. It should be a defining feature of any well-made game, in my opinion. And a protagonist you actually like makes everything work around them better. Hold that thought though, we'll come back to it. But maybe the stealth mechanics were there just to hide a bigger issue overall. The combat was clunky enough that the developers themselves came out and admitted the weapon feel was a problem. Recoil, fire rate, accuracy, all of it sucked. Even the speeder controlled like it was on ice and you couldn't shoot from it. You couldn't swap weapons smoothly. Any weapon you picked up off a dead stormtrooper, well, your character dropped it the second you needed the vault or climb. Just gone. All that sucked and it was well documented. The Day 1 patch tried to clean up some of it and it didn't get there. But the bigger problem, the one that killed this game before anybody touched it, was Kay Vess. I want to handle this carefully because there's a real person attached to this. Cameron Monaghan plays Cal Kestis in the Jedi series. Voice, motion capture, all of it. And they made his character look exactly like him. But here, they chose a completely different path. Umberly Gonzalez, and I'm sure I'm butchering that name, is the actress. She did the voice, she did the performance capture, she's an attractive woman. They scanned her in, they had the data, and somewhere in the development, somebody decided, you know what, let's change it. They designed a protagonist whose face actively repels the audience, and they did it intentionally. Pull up a photo of her. In fact, I'll do it for you. Next to the in-game model. The jaw is wider, features are flatter, the proportions are off. And that's not an accident either. Why would you do that? I have a theory, and maybe you're going to disagree with it, and that's fine. That's why the comment system exists. Back in the late 80s, Michael Eisner, who was the legendary Disney CEO who turned the company around, is famously quoted as saying this: "We have no obligation to make history. We have no obligation to make art. We have no obligation to make a statement. To make money is our only objective." Eisner understood something that a lot of modern executives have forgotten. The way you make money is by making things people actually want to watch, or play, or buy. The art was the means, the profit is the end, and focusing on making genuinely entertaining work was the path that connected them. Somewhere in the last decade, that got inverted. The current Disney era kept the profit motive, but lost the mechanism. They're trying to make money without making things people want. They're chasing approval from critics and meaningless award shows, while the audience walks away. And the industry has built up an entire ecosystem of consultants whose job is to tell developers how to design characters and write stories that meet ideological criteria rather than entertainment criteria. Imagine that. Imagine having a job where you get paid to make sure that the company you're working for makes less money. There's even a deeper conversation here about institutional investors like BlackRock pushing ESG framework into every public company they touch. And that's a video for another day, but just look at the results. Concord did this, Dustborn did this, Forspoken did this, Star Wars Outlaws did this, and every one of those games financially flopped. Kay Vess is what happens when you design a character by a checklist instead of by instinct. They had Umberly Gonzalez in the studio. They had a beautiful, charismatic actress giving them a performance. And they ran her through the checklist and came out the other side with something nobody wanted. That's an intentional design philosophy, and the audience rejected it. Just make games people want to play. The money follows. That's the part Eisner got right and the current era got wrong. But if you decide to make these choices, give your audience an out. Let me create my own character at the very least. The best role-playing games let you build your own character. Mass Effect lets you build Shepard. You can make Shepard whoever you want Shepard to be, down to the facial scars. Cyberpunk lets you build V. Baldur's Gate 3 lets you build a Tav. Every Bethesda game in the last 20 years has let you spend 2 hours in a character creator before you ever swing a sword. And I know because I've spent that time, many times. Yeah, I have a problem. Listen, character creators matter because of the investment. When you build a character, you're invested in that character in a way that you can't be when somebody hands you a face you didn't pick. Role-playing starts at the creator. It's the expectation for this kind of game in 2024, and Outlaws just didn't deliver it. Outlaws handed you Kay Vess and said, deal with it or you're a bigot or even worse. And a lot of people just didn't. And that could have been the epitaph of this game. taking all that potential and just wasting it while further killing the studio. But surprisingly, it's not. I have to give credit where it's due. Ubisoft did do some work here. They didn't ship it and walk away or pull the plug like Highguard. They fixed the stealth system, took out the mission fail conditions, and made the speeder controllable. Then they brought a real combat overhaul. Shoulder swapping, cover became a thing, weapon feels were redesigned across every gun, and the headshots now feel pretty rewarding. Different shooting patterns exist per weapon so that the rifles didn't all blur together. And then almost a year later, they added in firing from the speeder, swapping between two-handed weapons and your blaster. That's half the recovery, and it was good work, but it's all stuff that should have been there. The other half is the modding scene, and this is where PC ownership really pays off. Star Wars Outlaws has over 250 mods available now, face replacements and total character conversions. There's a mod called Good Looking Kay Vess that pulls her appearance back towards Umberly Gonzalez, which is wild when you say that out loud, that we needed a mod to make the character look like the actress that they hired and scanned to play her. There's a Twi'lek conversion, Chiss, Zabrak. If there's a model in the game, somebody swapped it. I picked to play as a Twi'lek. I made her look like Mission Vao from KOTOR, which if you played KOTOR back in the day, you know who I'm referring to, and you're probably smiling. It's like playing the version of her that grew up and found her place in an alternate timeline. And something really funny happened when I did that. The resentment evaporated. She's alien enough to me now that I'm not staring at a face the developers picked for me and called me bad words for not liking it. I'm playing a character that I picked. And honestly, the whole game opens up because of it. This is what console players miss. When the developers won't make the game that you want to play, somebody else will. Starfield, which most of us agree underwhelmed, has a mod called Star Wars Genesis. It converts the entire game into a Star Wars sandbox. People took it upon themselves to build Mos Eisley from scratch in Bethesda's engine because official Star Wars games just weren't good enough for them. That's where we are. PC modding has the potential to fix broken games and let us build the ones the studios wouldn't. That's the power dynamic on PC. The developers don't get the final word on the game you play. You do. I haven't talked about the visuals yet, and I should, because this is where this game was always going to be good. Outlaws nails the look of Star Wars in a way nothing else I've played has come close to. The Jedi series is great, but it's mostly wilderness survival settings, like forest planets or ice planets, ancient ruins. Take the lightsaber out and you could be playing any sci-fi game. Outlaws needed to build that dark, gritty world with tight, in-your-face urban areas that feel real and believable. With ray tracing on in the ultra setting, cantinas look like cantinas. The dust catches the light just the way it does in the films. Droids have weight. The original trilogy had this lived-in look that almost every Star Wars game since has missed. Outlaws nailed that. They got the aesthetic right from day one. It looks like Star Wars. I love that. And if I could afford it, I'd remodel my house to match this. But is it worth playing in 2026? Well, I'm 15 hours in so far. My Mission Vao lookalike is flying the Trailblazer. Most of the crime syndicates are pretty upset with me, and I'm thinking about the next session already. I'm actually genuinely having fun. So yeah, with patches and mods, it's actually worth it. But with a big caveat. I can't reward Ubisoft for this. I was only willing to try the game because it was an Xbox Game Pass. I'm paying the absolute minimum I can so they don't get the wrong message that this was an acceptable way to treat the audience. Part of what this industry has been doing is using our favorite mediums to nudge our views towards what they consider less problematic, and I'm just not going to support that. As gamers, we're fighting back with our wallets and we're winning. Michael Eisner figured this out decades ago. The industry just spent the last decade ignoring it to their own peril. Studios are going to adapt or die. Maybe Ubisoft deserves it. Or maybe lessons get learned. I don't know. But either way, I'll see you in the verse.